and welcome to episode number 18 of From the Marginlands. I'm Arati Kumar Rao.
Hi, this is an episode that both of us have been wanting to do for some time, partly because it features a stellar storyteller and therefore forms part of our storytelling series, but also because our guest today is a good friend and a long-time storytelling companion. So, in India's forests and its grasslands, in the shadows of cliffs and in the stillness of mangroves, there's been this one man who has spent 2 decades listening through a lens. Kalyan Varma is easily among India's most respected wildlife photographers and filmmakers. His camera has taken us to places that hold not just wild animals and not just forests and wild animals, but also compelling stories from that intersection of wildlife and humans. Uh, he's worked with premier international media houses like BBC and Discovery, to name just two. But it was when he released his first full length documentary, Wild Karnataka, uh, that he captured the national attention. That documentary went on to win awards at the national level. But for Kalyan, what was interesting about that was that filming and that documentary became a step in the evolutionary process of storytelling that powered what came next. His new documentary is Wild Tamil Nadu, and it explores the state through its five classical landscapes. Classical, as in derived from Sangam poetry and Sangam literature. That is Kurinji, Mullai, Marudam, Nedal, and Pale. And unusually for a wildlife documentary, this one blends Sangam era poetry with contemporary ecology. So, in this episode, we're going to talk with Kalyan about what it means to film the wild in a time of shrinking wilderness. We're going to talk about technology and the ethics of photographing and filming in a time of AI. We're going to talk about how culture deepens our connections with nature, and most importantly, about what keeps Kalyan returning camera in hand to the forests that still breathe life into the Indian imagination. As Arti said at the beginning, this is From the Marginlands, and I'm Prem Panikar.
And so, without further ado, we will get Kalyan on board. And in case anyone's wondering why I'm not saying anything, it's because I'm battling a bad attack of acute bronchitis, is what I've been diagnosed with. So, I will be mum. And here's on to Kalyan Varma.
Yeah.
Welcome to From the Marginlands, Kalyan. Kalyan Varma is in the house. And funnily enough, it's exactly 10 years since we started Peepley. And so, as Prem mentioned earlier on the sidelines, 3/4 of Peepley is on this call.
Yeah. Rahul Bhatia is the only one that's missing.
He's missing. We should have him also on.
Yeah.
Uh, so, Kalyan, just thinking back to Peepley, what attracted you about the notion of Peepley, if you still remember what it was?
Yeah, of course, I still remember what it was. No, I think PP was an interesting project for all of us, wasn't it? I mean, the clearly we were not happy with environmental reporting that was going on, at least the mainstream reporting that was going on, and it was either in a one-piece article that comes out or let's say even a 1 hour documentary or whatever, which never got into nuances of things, the smaller stories. Um, and the process of, for me, I think people biggest thing was the process of discovery. I think as we were finding stories, we were sharing the process of finding stories. I think that was really was the most exciting thing about PP for me, which is like no other platform had done before. I mean, internationally, probably some platforms have tried, but at least in India, in environmental reporting space. And also, I think all of us, right, the stories we went after were not the mainstream Probably my story was like the largest mammal out there, but it was not really a animal story. But and for me, I think that really stood out for people. And I just even today, I wish we could go back and redo some of those large stories. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, it's 33 years of journalism. Those, I think, almost a year. What we did together is what I'm proudest of by a distance. I mean, from concept to execution, we ticked every box except one important box, which is money.
Funding.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Prem,
So,
take it away. I just had that one question to start us off with.
so Kalyan, before we get into the actual work that you do, just to give viewers who don't know you, which is fairly small fragment, I suppose, but still, uh, to give them an idea of who you are and what you're about, you began life as a software engineer with Yahoo. You worked in security applications mostly. And then you jumped into wildlife photography and filmmaking. Actually, both of you share that, right? I mean, Aarti started with Dell and then jumped into photography.
Intel.
Intel, sorry. And you started with Yahoo and then jumped into photography, then filmmaking. What triggers that kind of a leap? And I mean, how do you get from software engineer to photographer, wildlife photographer?
So it's an interesting question. I mean, I think one thing a lot of people think of when they look at my past was that I was one of those disgruntled software engineer, and hence I quit my job and think. But actually, I love my job. In fact, I got into, uh, in some sense, activism very early, but in the software side of things, which is Creative Commons and free and open source software days. The when Linux was thing and Microsoft was a bully, and Wikipedia was just starting off, and we wanted works to be open. So in some sense, kind of activism, I won't call it activism, but partly activism, I suppose. But and I really like what I'm doing. I mean, I was expert in security, and I can't reveal. Maybe, I mean, it's been 25 years. Maybe I can reveal, but the crazy things I've done at Yahoo, it was really interesting. Like blockbuster movie kind of stuff. But I think what start working in, I mean, having a job meant was that I was getting a salary and I could pursue some of the hobbies, which unfortunately, wildlife photography is a hobby which is not cheap. So coming from a middle class family, I mean, I still remember with my first salary, I bought my first camera. FM, no, what 80? N80, I think, Nikon, the film camera, F80. Yeah. So, um, and I actually, for me, photography got me into nature. So I started as a photographer, going out on the streets, like street photography, kind of everyday life and things. And soon enough, kept on. I mean, one advantage of being in Bangalore is that you're close to a lot of these national parks and things. So started exploring national parks, met some amazing naturalists, very close dear friends of Arti also, Harsha and Payal. And they really got me interested in like just natural history, nothing about conservation and all that, but just pretty animals and birds, and over time I gravitated towards shooting more and more wildlife photography. So before I went in professionally, it was just a wildlife photography as a hobby built up in that direction. And frankly, the shift was accidental. I mean, it was I had quit my job and I wanted to take a sabbatical, and and during that time I said, you know what, why can't I just spend some time in the jungle and just go every day and photograph? And that's when the journey started. And I guess once I started living in the jungle, I just couldn't get back to a cubicle. So no matter what, of course, I still had to figure out how to make a livelihood and all that stuff. But at least once the bug was bitten, there was just no going back.
Hmm. And you describe yourself basically as a naturalist, explorer, photographer, filmmaker. So, how do you balance all those roles? And are there times when one dominates? Any one part of you dominates over the other?
Absolutely, you're doing all of them all the time. I think
Mm-hmm.
when I'm making a film about elephants, if I see some squirrel doing some cool things, I will be drawn to it, and I might not be filming it because maybe it doesn't require film, but the naturalist in me gets excited and does those things. I generally like to use the word explorer more because I like exploring cultures as well. I think one nice thing about what this job lets me do is being in remote areas. So with people, spending time with people, understanding the culture. And when I say culture, it's not song and dance. It's not at all. It's the regular stuff and just knowing them intimately. So I really think that's why I call myself an explorer, because I both explore natural landscapes, but cultures, people, landscapes. So and you have to switch off. You can't do all the thing. In fact, there were times when I had a camera with me where I just didn't take any pictures because of the circumstances. Um, yeah, it is. I mean, it's your first love is just exploring and admiring this beauty.
Hey, yeah,
Prem, you're
you're
on
on
mute.
mute. Let me unmute you. Hang on. Okay, there you are.
Yeah. Arti, you want to take it away, since we have a bit of a background on who Kalyan is and where he came from. Let's start talking about the work that he's doing.
Okay, so one something that we wanted to ask you about, and these are not my pet questions. My pet questions will come later, so just fair warning. Once those pet questions start, they might be a little uncomfortable. But but right now, let's talk about your maybe not the latest project, but the one before this, which was Wild Karnataka, which made a lot of splashes. Um, and it won awards and stuff like that. So, at what point did you realize that this was a film that was doing, or that you were doing something different in this film, or did it start out that way? How did this project come about? Making a blue chip film about Karnataka's wild.
So the genesis of the film was the frustration I've had over the years working for Western channels or platforms, media platforms. Unfortunately, the domestic market in India doesn't exist to make high-end documentaries, financially or, you know. So I mean, before Wild Karnataka, for like almost more than a decade, I was working for BBC's, Nat Geo, and all that. And every time, you tell a story, and it's frustrating at the end because the way the story turns out. I mean, if it's BBC, it's a very UK gaze on storytelling. If it's Nat Geo or something, it's a very American gaze of storytelling. And they real have you lost out, Arti? You're on
No, no,
mute.
no. Don't worry. I'm
Uh,
here. I'm here. It's
sorry.
just that I focused it on you. Keep
Okay.
talking. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and the thing is, you know, in India especially, even if it's pure natural history, let's not even get into environment things, but even if it's pure natural history, the first thing they say when monsoon arrives is peacock dancing, and it's just annoying because peacock dancing has nothing to do with monsoon, or it's the cliche, whenever they talk about rivers, there's a guy in loincloth and just praying on the thing, which is just I don't know. So that really was frustrating me for many many years, and that was the time bunch of us, not me and me Amo, a bunch of us got together and said, you know, why don't we as Indian storytellers, filmmakers, tell story about our land the way we would like to tell the story, not with a Western narrative or a Western gaze. So that was really the genesis of Wild Karnataka. And of course, we went through a lot of hurdles related to funding, all that stuff. But frankly, we didn't expect it to be as big as it became. I mean, we got really good cooperation from the forest department, and through as the filming progressed, we realized that there is potential for something more than just yet another documentary film on forest department. So, um, and to be fair, I think it was also a right point where we could afford the technology. Before that, some of the cameras and all that stuff for professional broadcasting were just not available in India and ridiculously expensive. Drones had just come in, so we really had access to technology as well. And of course, and I know, Arti, how big a fan you are of David Attenborough. Um, I think icing on the cake was him narrating the film. So yeah, so quite proud of that film. Yes.
You had to throw that in there, huh? Um, so, you know what? I'm going to jump, Prem, if you don't mind. I'm going to jump to one of my questions because it's something that Kalyan just mentioned. So I'm going to pick up on it. The fact that the tropes that we see when we see Western films, or rather Western media making films on India, are very tired, very kind of old colonial type tropes. Um, Here well, I guess in the quote unquote global South, I hate that term really, but we do have to look to the global North, the West, basically, for funding, right? It's hard to be able to make hard hitting stories, or even stories that we want to make um, in India with local funding, like you just said, right? So, how does now that shape stories that are being told on an everyday basis? The fact that the Western media then dictates how or what is shot, or whether it is good news only, or the more inconvenient aspects can be spoken about. um, and having said that, and these films being made their way, what then happens as to who sees the film? The films are made in India or made in Africa, but I remember Paula Kahumbu saying once that the people in Africa have never get to see those films, the films that are made. So um, you know how is that still the case? I know that was the case a few years ago. Is that still the case? Are things changing? um, or are Indian funders also wanting to see those kinds of things only, like the holy, if it's beyond wildlife, it is holy in that little village where they have a lot of color and all of that stuff going on, right? And, or they'll want brothels and the whole red light district kind of thing, or they want their elephants and their tigers and sadhus and all of that. Is that changing, or are you finding it hard to break beyond that mold?
So it's funny you mentioned this because I think there is a watershed movement in the media world right now that's going on. It got triggered by COVID, and I think one good thing around COVID or pre-COVID was that advent of streaming platforms. So there were a lot of years where I would do a documentary, it would get released in UK, and I had to wait 3 years before it aired in India, and I had to use, yes, I can say it publicly, pirated sites to download them illegally to watch my own films. Um, but I think with number one, streaming platforms kind of changed that because things like Netflix or Apple TV or whatever, the same film it's accessible across the world. Um, and social media, I really think, has changed it. I think, in terms of, I know it's not big budget like a 1 hour documentaries, but YouTube, for example, YouTube is the most watched platform on earth, bigger than Netflix, Apple TV, everything combined. And YouTube, people are just not watching on their mobiles; it's on television. It's an app on your television, right? So it's really democratized storytellers, filmmakers, really. Um, Funding models, I do agree in the fact that we still depend on Western, our global North companies largely, but the funding models are changing. And I think in India, one good thing is that there's good appetite for making wildlife films, not just the pretty ones, but even hard hitting ones. Um, Maybe you can talk about later. Like 2 years ago, I had done this film called Project Tiger, which was looking at the 50-year journey of, and it was not a pretty film at all. It's we had to give a warning saying kids can't watch all that stuff. But the funders who funded it a couple of funders, they were very keen. They said, tell the story the way it's meant to be. We don't care chasing views. And so that's the other thing, right? The good thing about funding these days, the landscape has changed in a way where you're not measured by TRP ratings. If you are getting funded by Nat Geo or whatever, the most annoying thing I have to say it, I hate the world where algorithms run the world. You know, a friend of mine in Bristol, they made this series. The budget was like $30 million. They spent 5 years in making the 6-part series, and it got on Disney, and Disney realized that in the first 1 week they were not getting enough views. They literally deleted that series. I mean, forget removing from the in the listing. They control all Dell
Oh my.
because they could claim tax benefit on it, saying that it's a write-off as a loss, and we can claim. It's literally deleted 5 years of somebody's work. So, so that's the sad part, is that there's not a human being in there deciding that, okay, that's a powerful film, I'll invest my money. It's algorithms that are deciding viewers preferences, and that's how they're choosing what they're going to fund. But I think YouTube, and even if you look at TikTok, we don't have it in India, but globally, TikTok and Instagram, they have also become primarily video platforms, short content, but video platforms, right? And I think that's really opened up a lot of space. And I see a lot of people who are doing brand collaborations where these are Instagram influencers who are getting paid to do interesting, it's not just brand promotion, but actually interesting stories.
Just one follow up. Do you see the kind of topics changing as well? Beyond the usual tropes, beyond the large mammals, beyond the or even climate change, which everything has to have a climate change lens, otherwise it doesn't work at all. But there are so many other stories that need telling, which don't fit neatly into these buckets. They can have elements of these kinds of things, where there could be conflict with or whatever you call it, whatever the latest term, human animal relationship, whatever the latest term, correct term is to say. But it could have elements of that, or it could have elements of climate change. But there are other egregious things happening in the world in terms of corruption or land acquisition, for various projects and so on, displacement of a lot of native people and so on, which are uncomfortable topics. Do you find people in India tackling that in a way that is mainstream?
I wouldn't say we're not there yet. I think, like you rightly said, it's the big animals, the charismatic issues, and issues that can resonate globally is what people care about. So, like you rightly said, climate. I just every app I download today, or I log into. Sorry, I'm not. I can make fun of friends, but I log into LinkedIn. Everybody's an AI expert. I'm like, you were not an AI expert 3 years ago. Everything adds AI, and these days with documentary filmmaking, you just need to add climate change to everything, and that basically ensures that you get the funding and whatever things. And I
Yes.
totally agree, but I still think the highly local stories get ignored. I think there is still no appetite for a highly local story. For
Mm.
example, even the Peepley thing, it was a very localized Hassan story.
Yeah.
All that plays out in different parts. I still don't think people will want a local. You can still do a local story, but you need to connect it to a global issue or a zoom out at the end of the film. In some sense. Um, and I still think we all know that those local stories are actually the most important, and those specific story of an individual or a individual village or things like that. And I really don't think the media still has appetite for it, mainstream media at least.
Mm-hmm. Prem?
Yeah. Kalyan, sometime back when we were talking or when we were trying to introduce you to the audience, you spoke about how much you like culture. Um, Before I ask you the question, this is basically for people outside Tamil Nadu who need to know this. Sangam literature, which is the traditional uh, Tamil literature, poetry, storytelling, all of that. divides Tamil Nadu into five what they call classical landscapes. There is the Kurinji, which is the hill region. There is Mullai, which is the forest tracts. Then you have Marudam, which is the plains, Neithal, which is the coastal region, and Palai, which is the dry region. Uh, Interestingly, when you did Wildlife Tamil Nadu, uh, it was not just focused on, like you said, pretty animals, not the elephant, not the tiger, that kind of thing. You also went region by region. You focused on the region. You focused on, among other things, the intersection of culture, language, and nature. All of that comes up in Wild Tamil Nadu, right? How, how did you think of weaving culture into ecological storytelling, which is one, and what was the prompt that made you decide to go back into classical times to draw your idea for today?
So one of the things about Wild Karnataka when it came out, and I got rightly so very good critique from dear friends, and one of the critique was that you showed the film as if there are no people in this state. It's as if this is just wild landscapes, and I do agree with that. In fact, I criticize BBC some of these documentaries for doing exactly that. And fair enough, I think you learn from your mistakes. I wouldn't say it's a mistake, but you get better. So when started Wild Tamil Nadu was clear thing that it is a landscape, especially most of India. It's a wildlife landscape. It's not, we're not separating these things. These are not two separate things. So one thing I was very clear about was that we're going to tell stories of animals in people landscape and vice versa, people in animal landscape, wild landscapes. So, and frankly, the Sangam literature was to be fair, I mean, we really didn't, I mean, it was not meant to be like a cultural thing. We needed a thread to hold up like the whole 1 hour film together. And we wanted to show all the landscapes of Tamil Nadu. So while researching, I think it was really fascinating that 4,000 years ago, poets wrote about these landscapes. And the poetry is amazing. I mean, I've simplified it for the film, but in every landscape, they talk about monsoon is time for lovers to go into the bush and make love. And they talk about flowers and, emotions behind it. It's beautiful. We really couldn't get into that, but the Sangam literature really helped in holding the film together. One of the hardest thing is, I mean, what I find very easy is telling a 3-5 minute sequence, which is a short story of an animal doing something. But if you're representing a landscape like Tamil Nadu over an 1 hour long duration, you need to have a larger narrative arc. And Sangam, I really found that interesting way to classify these landscapes and move from one landscape to another. And of course, we had multiple threads in the film also. So we did, one of the things about Sangam is they talk about water, So we started with, okay, let's start with the Western Ghats where the monsoon rains come and, but let's look at journey of water up in the mountains, goes into the deciduous forest, goes into farmland where people depend on water for farming. But some places it doesn't reach. That's where you get deserts, but eventually it does reach the ocean and you have the biodiversity of the ocean. So you kind of started that as a journey as well, tying up with Sangam literature. But when I said, I just want to clarify that when I said earlier that I'm interested in culture, it's not necessary trying to take cultural aspects and put it in a film, slapping them on. It's, I think, you get a better understanding of the place only when you talk to people, uh, understand how they look at a place versus, and I'm guilty of it many times. Is in our reporting we say that we parachute in and parachute out, right? And I'm very clear that I don't want to do that anymore. I'm guilty of doing that before.
Uh, Also, for both Wild Karnataka and Wild Tamil Nadu, one of the things about where you do, for want of a better phrase, conservation films or films in that genre, uh, the constant struggle is between preaching versus just showing. Uh, so, how do you craft a narrative that can engage viewers emotionally while still delivering substance? It could be about climate change, about habitat loss, about human wildlife conflict, without being very didactic and very preachy about it. What is that balance, and how do you achieve it?
I'm still trying to find that balance, Prem.
Okay.
uh, I I largely categorize everything I do into two buckets. Um, one which I always believe, although people criticize me for this, I think we need films that will make people fall in love with nature. I think we are privileged people who get to go on safaris or have access to nature in a way a lot of the country don't have access. I mean, having access to nature, enjoying nature is a privilege, I have to say. And the first part is to make people fall in love. I mean, I care about environment because 20 years ago, somebody took me on a safari and showed me this beautiful paradise flycatcher, and I just got so excited by it, right? Um, and then there's the second part, which is the telling people what the issues are, conservation issues are, you know. And one thing about conservation films is that you need,
Just a
yes,
sec. Did Prem, did you lose Kalyan too? Okay, Kalyan, just back up a little bit and just say, start from when you were, when 20 years ago when somebody took you on a safari, because you just froze at that point. Okay.
So 20 years ago, somebody took me on safari and showed me a paradise flycatcher, and I just fell in love with birds and everything else. Um, and I would like to do that too with my films, which is the first step is make people fall in love with wilderness, the animals, the landscapes that people have. And and like I was saying earlier, because of people only watch documentaries on National Geographic, which is usually about some Africa. Like Tamil Nadu, I went and asked, like, what are the animals in your state? And people say hippos and giraffes, It's just because of yeah, because that's what they see on National Geographic, and that's what they think it is. But there is the second part. I think when you're talking about environment conservation issues, I still find it hard to mix both. I still treat them separately. I like to do films where people fall in love with nature, but independently make separate films, which is all about the issue. But like you said, go into the depth of the issue. Make people don't just you can't. Number one, you can't preach. Number two, with environment films, is that ideally it helps to have hope at the end. End the film with hope or a call for action. Without that, people will just feel depressed. you know and that's a really hard part, and I think I feel that one of the things we filmed for the first time for Tamil Nadu film is Madras Hedgehog. You know and very few people have seen it. People don't know there's a hedgehog in Tamil Nadu, and it's you know and right now what's amazing is that after the film, it's not gone out yet, but with little screenings we had, now Tamil Nadu government is saying that let's make hedgehog the symbol of grasslands, that dry scrub habitat, like the flagship species. Um, Maybe there might be conservation reserves, which I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of protected areas, so I don't want forest department to go and put a fence around some place where local communities are depending on it. But at least they're looking at this as a flagship. So, and people will care. The hedgehog is a cute, cuddly thing. I mean, it's like that WWF panda logo. We can criticize it, but it works. So yeah, it's a two-step process, and I think like we have done with the elephant conflict film or Project Tiger. These are hard-hitting conservation films, but just for my sanity, also, I like to do these pretty wildlife films because I it keeps reminding me why I got into this in the first place. Prem,
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah. No. So one of the things that we do with this podcast, Kalyan, is we've also been focusing on storytellers and on their craft itself. So, from a craft perspective, I wanted to ask, what are the big uh, technical, logistical challenges that you face in making these kind of films? Your remote locations, the need for permission, the need to work with, say, forest departments, some of whom may not necessarily understand what the heck you're trying to do, seasonal constraints, all of that, right? So, what are these challenges? And I remember reading someplace that, say, for instance, in Wild Tamil Nadu, it was not just you, right? There are about 10 different videographers all shooting a story that will all come together at some stage. How do you manage that team? How does everybody read off the same sort of page in terms of storytelling? How does all this work?
I wish I had figured it out. I still haven't figured it out, to be honest. But to give credit, I think the Wild Tamil Nadu is not just the 10 cameramen. I think there were about 30, 40 people, from people who help with permissions, people who done research, scientists who we've consulted with. There were sound engineers, post production team. So it's a large team. I mean, usually I do understand that the cameramen get all the face time on media and things, but I mean, it is a crazy process. I mean, I will be honest, and I probably can say it here: getting permissions in India is not easy. Um, because once you do professional filmmaking, you need forest department permissions. Um, in Tamil Nadu, some states which have tourism, high tourisms, they're usually more friendly with filming groups, like Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, and some of these states. Tamil Nadu was a hard cookie because they just said, no, we don't want you to promote Tamil Nadu because we will have more tourists coming in and we won't be able to manage it. Please don't do the film. I said, guys, come on. This is, it's a pride of the state. You really want to show up? They said, no, absolutely no way, Jose. So it took me 2 years to get permissions, frankly, in Tamil Nadu. And we didn't, and of course, when we started the project, COVID hit, 2 waves, 2 years were really tough. And, but we started filming. And the good thing about wildlife in India is that you don't actually have to go into protected areas to film all the time. I think more than 60% of the stories were filmed outside protected areas. Some of the landscapes like Valparai, which where these are all private areas where these animals are doing their thing. So we started filming. Finally, the permission came much later. But I think different people have different style of filming. I think, like, I'm very clear about my style, which is slightly more cinematic, slow storytelling. These days you have tools like this FPV drone where this drone can go inside trees, and I just hate that. I mean, I'm just like, use it if it adds value to the story. Don't use it. I mean, I really, I think Wild Karnataka, I have to admit, that was drones were new, and just seeing landscapes from top was new, and we overdid it. And this time it's like, guys, we are only using a drone shot if it adds to the story. Please, let's just not use drones just because we have a drone sitting in our trunk. Same thing with the kind of cameras we chose. I very particular about the frame rates. I know many people are not. Like, I'm so fussy about that shot should have been at 32 frames per second, not 35 frames per second. It should have composed this way. And it's all built with stories. And the thing is, if you're not coming back with a sequence or a story, if you might have 100 pretty shots, but they're just going to go into dustbin. Really, we're not going to use any of them. So everything was sequence based. Like, we need a story, entertaining story. We did a launch last week, 10 days ago in Chennai, and frankly, we had more people than Kantara, Kantara 1, which just got launched. And I felt good. I mean, oh my God. And not that the fact that people showed up, but they felt entertained at the end of it. That's the thing about documentaries. People have this thing that, oh, for God's sake, are they going to preach me something and it's all technical and I'm, thing. That's the thing about documentaries these days. They need to be factual. People go back with learning something new, but you need to have aspect of entertainment. Otherwise, people are not going to watch. Especially days of 30-second reels, and where, I mean, I have this thing also. I sit in the evening, watch Netflix, watch this thing, watch it for the first 5 minutes. I'm like, this is not working for me. And I just, go to the menu and pick something else. So in an age like that, you need to have documentaries which are entertaining, gripping. The first 3 to 5 minutes are critical. You need to hook people up. Otherwise, they're not going to stick around. So just going back, I mean, it is a huge process. The post-production took us 1.5 years. We had a lovely team who created this. And unfortunately, we don't record sounds in the field. It's just too much because we're talking, the camera makes sound. So we kind of had to recreate all the sounds of footsteps of animals walking, everything studio, which is lovely. So much fun. And one of the things about Wild Tamil Nadu is we made it Dolby Atmos sound, So when you go and see it in cinema, if a bird is flying from right to left, the flaps start on the rightmost speaker and move across, and it's just, to experience that is something else. So although I said I'm not going to watch this film because through editing process last 1 year I watched twice every day, I can't bear to watch the film anymore. But when I saw it in theater, it's just, and seeing people's reaction, and that what makes you want to go back and do new things.
Now I see why you, I think, in an interview said that Wild Tamil Nadu was more satisfying to you than Wild Karnataka. Uh, it partly, at least, because of the process of evolution and storytelling and all of that. Arti?
We're going to get nice brickbats, man. This is like a Karnataka versus Tamil Nadu thing starting up here. No. Hey, Kalyan, so I'm going to play devil's advocate and go back to the question where that you were asked, I mean, the pushback you got when you were looking for permits. So where's the balance between showing the beauty of a place, or you know playing up the natural wonders in a place to ignite wonder among people, which is awesome, and it's a good thing because that's how you begin, and then you protect what you love and all of that. But there is the flip side of over tourism. And I remember when we were doing workshops, and we used to come to your workshops, which you used to do in Valparai. And I remember those conversations about how everybody and his grandfather is now coming to Valparai to see these animals. So, um, how do you balance that out, and where do you fall where it comes to what tourism should be or how it should be conducted, given the fact that some of the work that we all do as storytellers is to ignite curiosity in a place or in a people or in an animal?
Our friend Divya Mudappa always accuses me of ruining Valparai single-handedly because
Exactly. I didn't want to take names. You did.
um, and you know what? I think I don't get bothered by mass tourism. I just think that we, ha- in let's say national parks, I mean, again, I'm just very large classification. Let's say you have 20 national parks in a state. I think it's okay to let go of that one national park with excessive tourism, as long as you're keeping the other 19 completely locked up and protected, or with very limited tourism. We met in Ranthambore early this year, and I love Ranthambore. I love Ranthambore for the fact that, for 200 rupees, any person can go in a canter and see a tiger. It's a national animal. You know, Um our friend Modi guy says, do you ever see a black person on safari in Africa? You don't, right? And in India, traditionally it used to be white people who used to come on this fancy safari, but now I just love the fact
Oh
that there's
yeah.
a Indians. I mean, then I agree. I mean, they're noisy and maybe they don't keep the etiquette the way we would like it. But I just love seeing the fact that they pay 200 rupees and this excitement in their face when they see a tiger. And I really think that tourism has to be accessible. It shouldn't be for the privileged. I'm not a big fan of Karnataka way of tourism because it costs ridiculously high amount of money to go on a
Yeah.
safari. you know.
Yeah.
So I love what Kerala did with Ervikulam National Park. Ervikulam National Park is, I don't know, 200, 300 square kilometers. And they basically took out half a square kilometer, and they basically, people can do what they want. The circus, ice creams and chips packets, everything. But people are not allowed to touch the pristine part. I love what they do in Gir. You know, I have critique about Gir Lions, but outside Gir, there's a rescue center. And they put these lions in this big enclosure. And it's amazing because people go on a safari. They don't realize that these are captive animals. I mean, they probably know, but they've seen a lion from a safari, and they come out, and there is KFCs, there is the whole Burger King and everything, and they have a good family time. And the people
You
go,
you you wanted that KFC for your chicken nuggets, dude.
oh, let's not get there. Uh, but the amount of people who actually go inside the park, investing time and money to actually go in, is reduced quite a bit. So I think Yes, I think people need to have access. People need to know, and I think it's up to the government to how they manage tourism and keep it accessible yet control it.
Yeah, sorry, Prem, just I just want to pick up on something that Kalyan just mentioned when he was started answering this question. He talked about us having met in Ranthambore. Soon after us having met in Ranthambore, while he was still filming in the park, I think there were two maulings of pilgrims going up to the temple. And then in the news, I think Jay Mazumdar also wrote about this, about how they have been feeding Arrowhead because, of course, Arrowhead was sick and all of that, but then also her cubs with those buffaloes and so on. Can you unpack that for us a little bit? Where does the wild stop and management start? And with these national parks, which are such huge draws, um, you know, how does one even begin to think about the things that have been happening in Ranthambore?
I'll get banned for saying this, but I'll say it anyway. uh, I am not fan of feeding these animals. I think any animal, whether it's tigers, elephants, or any small creature, if they ought to die naturally, let them die. The what happened, unfortunately, in Ranthambore was that is these hero worshipping of particular individual tigers, Arrowhead, Riddhi, Siddhi, all that stuff. And when people come to Ranthambore, they don't want to see a tiger; they want to see Arrowhead. And so that's the kind of pressure that the park has or the tourism guides have and things like that. And because of that, I don't park takes these decisions of extending lives of these tigers when they naturally ought to be dying by then, um, which I'm not a fan of, but I see why they're doing it. But I hope what happened early this year is a reminder that interfering with nature will mean that tigers will behave in a way which they're not supposed to. And unfortunately, 3 lives were lost before they fixed the issue.
And we link to those stories, guys, so that you know what we're talking about here. It might be too much to get into all of that right now. Frame?
Yeah, to get back into the storytelling aspect of what you do, Kalyan, it feels like there's this thing that they say, right? Sometimes, uh, you know, uh, a year seems like a decade, but sometimes entire decades are compressed into a very short period of time, and that is true of storytelling technology, right?
Sorry,
Particularly in your field.
could you just repeat that? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was saying that the way sometimes it's like entire decades worth of development take place inside a very short, finite period of time, and that's very true of your particular department, which is visual storytelling. So you have, for instance, the drones that you mentioned earlier, and how attractive it is to keep zooming them all over the place and all of that. You have AI driven image enhancement. You have ultra low light sensors. All of this coming in, how do you see all of this impacting visual storytelling, wildlife storytelling, or even generally visual storytelling? What is exciting about these new developments, and equally, what are the risks involved?
Yeah, I mean, I'm more concerned about the risks, frankly. I think we have evolved pretty well, where we have cameras that can shoot at resolutions beyond what an eye can see. You have processes where you can put a camera anywhere, up in the air, underwater, wherever you want. Um, you have cameras today where you can see into the night. On a full moon night, you don't need any lighting. You can just film animals the way it is. So, of course, it's great that we are able to tell intimate stories which we couldn't tell before using this latest tech and gear and things like that. But for me, I think the larger issue comes with is about trust. As a documentary filmmaker, the fact that I call myself a documentary filmmaker means that everything I show is real. Every sentence that is spoken in the documentary, whether there's a voiceover, a person saying, is factual, right? Um, my worry with especially AI technologies is that, um, I mean, just today morning I woke up. This guy's feeding some water to a tiger or something, and people didn't even realize that it was AI. I mean, only few people
Yeah,
caught it.
I looked at it tons of times, and the even the shadows and all matched up. So I thought, okay, yeah, it's not AI.
Yeah, it is AI, and frankly, I can still pick it up, but maybe 6 months, year from now, I'm sure we'll be able to. I can type Wild Tamil Nadu, please show this animals. He'll whip out a 1 hour documentary with everything in it. So, um, so it really has a lot of people in my industry concerned. You know, do we stand as a filmmaker tomorrow if you're really good with writing your prompts, you can whip out a great film out of it. And I think bunch of us are actually starting a certification process called Free of AI, where we are clearly saying that every shot in this film, and we'll have a digital verification process, is non-AI generated. What you're seeing is real. Although it has people worried, I'm very optimistic about my career in AI world, because I think people will want to see, when people know that this person hasn't compromised, you actually spent 200 days in the field trying to get that shot, people will value. That's one of the reasons why Christopher Nolan, for example, some of the biggest directors, they still shoot in film. Although we have digital technologies, I think they're making it a point saying that it's not CGI or whatever, it's the heart of the film is storytelling without using fancy technology. The fact that today, and Aarti, I know you do lovely illustrations, is illustrations have a lot more value than photographs. Or a painting will fetch, I don't know, 20, I mean, these days, I don't know, even $100 million. But a photograph will never fetch that kind of money. I think people value the fact that that's real. Somebody actually sat there for days and painted it, right? And I really think that it's an advice for young filmmakers: don't get carried away by AI tools. It's very easy, it's very tempting, and do it in a way where you acknowledge it. I mean, I'm happy to generate something funny and post it, but I will clearly label it as it's AI generated. Just have fun, guys. And AI, I'm using it multiple processes. Okay, I can't talk about the next project I'm doing. It basically, I met a funder and they said, can we have a proposal? And I just sat in Chat GPT, wrote few prompts, and it whipped out a beautiful PPT. So next morning I was able to present it and I got the film commission, put together a proposal. And I was in the field and I just had to type in Chat GPT and it whipped out this beautiful presentation with images, and I could present it the next day, and project got approved in 24 hours. And since then, it's amazing because ChatGPT remembers, and once they send me a contract to sign, I don't have a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. Upload to ChatGPT, tells me, hey, oh yeah, that's the project you were writing proposal, right? So this is the flags in the contract, and then I'm asking, inspire me with stories or narrative arc. So I use AI in that way. But I think if, as a creative director, the stories you show and visuals you show and the facts you tell has to be clean, and that's the only way documentary filmmakers can survive in this world where you can generate everything.
Right. Uh, Sometime back, Kalyan, when you were talking about documentaries and what you wanted out of it, you said, everything has to be true, everything has to be real, but that a documentary also has to be entertaining. You need that quotient as well, right? Uh, One thing, uh, sort of besides entertainment, how about impact? For instance, I was thinking again of Peepley days, and I've been thinking of that a lot recently because uh, I don't know, I think we were ahead of our time in terms of putting out something that was never going to get funded. But if I remember correctly, when you did that Hassan man elephant conflict story, it led to you getting co opted into the forest department's uh, redoing of how elephants are captured and all of that, right? I mean, could you talk about impact of documentaries for a bit?
So, Prem, is a very interesting question about impact of films. I think it's not how many views you get or awards you win. I think if you're able to have one even tiny positive impact, it's just so much more satisfying. Like you rightly said, when we did the Hassan series with as part of PP project, um, you know, there was a video out which shows the elephant capture, which is hard to watch. That itself made a lot of difference. But the whole point we did Peepley was that we're not pointing fingers, but it's a larger issue, and people had to understand that what the larger issue was. But because of that series, at least in Karnataka, the forest minister then, and it got viral, and whenever people protested, are requested for elephant removal, they would always show these videos, and after that, they set a clear policy that we are not going to do mass captures. We'll only do SOS captures when an individual has killed 3-4 people, but surely not removing families and trying to remove elephant. And what's interesting is that 2014 was when the thing happened. There was supposed to be some 28 elephants, and they captured 25 plus. Right now, there are 40 elephants. After all that, they're all. New ones have come back, and now it's all about managing conflict. And it's not just conservation films. You won't believe it. Wild Tamil Nadu, it hasn't been public yet. There's been one screening. And already, because we've showcased Pulikat Lake and how beautiful it was and the bird life, some of the people at that area have taken that clip, because there's a new, I won't take names, plant project, industrial project that's coming up at Pulikat Lake. And they are using this to convince people, saying that, hey, this is the biodiversity of this lake and we can't let this project come up. You can take guesses. The project starts with A, alphabetical A. I don't need to mention who it is. Aarti can't hear.
When we had Yuvan on, he spoke about it.
Yes. So even that's the thing about, you don't have to try to make impact. I think if you make films which you can use to convince people, I think it's easy to convince people when you say how the beauty of what this. When you look at Elephant Whisperers, what happened with, winning an Oscar, getting global recognition. All elephant camps across the country are getting an upgrade because they realize the, not so great livelihoods the mahouts have and things like that. So even without a message, I think films can have impact. Maybe not all will have. Wild Karnataka, I'm not sure if it really had any impact in that sense, But Project Tiger, by the way. So have you guys watched it? I don't know.
I've seen it several times.
Okay.
I love it. I show it to every group I take.
So what's interesting is that Government of India, NTCA, is showing it to the world, saying that you guys don't tell us what to do about conservation. This is how we've done it. It's amazing. It's not impact directly, but I think I'm feeling nice that the government itself is using that to kind of push back on a Western funding or / policies that get thrown at us,
and I think that film particularly did a very important job of writing our history through our words, which really, 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 it's very impactful if for anyone seeing it. And I've shown it to non-Indians, Indians, and everyone. They all said we knew that the tiger was our national animal, but we had no idea that this is what was behind the success of Project Tiger. Some had heard of Project Tiger, some had not even heard of Project Tiger, but everybody had come to see the tiger, right? Everybody comes, whether it's Sundarbans or whether it's Nagarole, everybody comes to see the tiger. But when you show them this film, you also realize that it's a slice of our history which we don't learn growing up. And I think you did a particularly fantastic job, because it's also not sugarcoating anything. At least I saw the version that didn't sugarcoat. I don't know if there's another version now. But
no. In fact, we didn't, and we criticize people or the government when they did wrong. We praise the government when they did things right.
Yeah.
And like you rightly said, people like us, we get to hear Mahesh Rangarajan and all that, where we hear environmental history of India. I wanted to use, although it was a film about tigers, I intentionally wanted the film to be a kind, like you rightly said, a kind of a debrief of environmental history of India. And in a film form, because I can't do a full environmental history in a film, but at least through Project Tiger, looking at historic 50 years and
No, and
pre-color.
I think you did a fabulous job. It almost reminded me of Ken Burns's films with all the documentary, the archival footage, then the interviews, and it just brought out so many different voices, nuances, and you realized how the pieces fit together. We will. Is it out? Is it out on OTT or anything?
On this Discovery Plus, people can watch it.
Discovery Plus. Okay.
Yeah.
Just send us the link. We'll link to it
Sure.
because it's
In
a
fact, one
great.
of the hardest thing, Prem, again, as film Project Tiger, was that we didn't have a narrator. It was purely by the voices of people who were talking about this issue. So it was really hard because you're like, oh shit, there is no link from this to this, you know. So somebody hasn't said it. And it was depending on archive. 70% of the film was archive footage and photos. And oh my God, I had to go to Kendriya Southern, and they had these old tapes. I had to buy a new player from UK and scan these Indira Gandhi footages, all that was sitting there. It was just crazy. Raza Kazmi helped us a lot in getting these archives. So, but that was a different challenge altogether.
No, it's fabulous. No, I must say that's one of the. I would peg that as one of the best wildlife documentary films, if you can call it wildlife documentary films coming out of India
It's a
ever.
historical thing. I think I would probably wouldn't call it wildlife, but yeah.
Well, yeah, I think it should be called wildlife because this is also what wildlife documentaries should do. You know, it
And
really
from
should
and
teach.
from that point of view, do you think that, I mean, I know that you don't go into a documentary wanting to change the world, you want to tell a story. But do you think that documentary filmmaking, particularly natural documentaries like the ones you've just done, it has a definite role in in mobilizing public policy, in mobilizing opinion? Do you think that medium is increasingly effective in India, or is it still underdeveloped?
Um, so two parts. I think one thing, documentaries were traditionally looked down upon. It was you either had to tune into Discovery Channel or Animal Planet or something. But I think when Netflix first came out, I think one of the early titles of Netflix that did really well were the documentaries on Netflix. And I think Netflix also proved that documentaries can still be sleek with high production values and and things like that. So all these documentaries about food and nutrition, they're done really well. But I think one thing I think I keep telling Aarti also, I want to maybe move into fictional world. Sometimes I feel my hands are so tied trying to tell stories in documentary world that make it fictional so that you can throw in all emotions, you can control what you want to say. I mean, I felt like one of the best mainstream film about environment conservation was Sherni, which came out, Vidya Balan, which really showed not just tiger conflict but navigating that rural landscape, bureaucratic landscape, being a woman especially, all that stuff, which is beautifully well done. And I can never capture that in a documentary. Let's go fictional, and I'll probably get Amitabh Bachchan to play the
Fist
lead role.
bump, fist bump,
Shah
bump.
Rukh Khan, actually. Yes.
Yeah.
My favorite, yeah.
It's interesting because of late, Aarti has been uh, taking baby steps in writing fiction. Now you want to shoot fiction. Somewhere along the line, I hope you guys talk to one another. But Aarti, you want to take it away?
I want to ask a question which Kalyan's going to hate me for asking, but um, it's a he's probably going to burst out laughing when I say it. But so India is a very populous country, right? Um,
I know where you're going with this. Okay, go for it. Yes.
okay, so yeah, we do have 1.4 billion people and counting. However, I know you have always said that wherever you go in India, there is a tremendous accommodation for our wild brethren or creatures, right? Can you speak to that a little bit about how we live with wildlife in India and without romanticizing it, to just talk about the realities of such a populous country, so much wildlife. We have all of our apex predators, except for the cheetah, of course,
Which you
with
do?
us.
thanks to
Not our cheetah. Some other cheetahs come. That's fine. Anido. But um, so yeah, so we still have all of our apex predators and so on. And what then do you see as the chief threat to wildlife in India today?
I think we are the problem. And I do agree that even me, I'm guilty of romanticizing this people's relationship with nature. Frankly, they're not all romantic relationships. These are relationships of hate, relationships of livelihood lost, lives lost. Um, Unfortunately, those people don't have the privilege to separate themselves from these dangerous wild animals. We have the privilege, living in the cities. So one of again a friend of both ours, Arti, is that when they have NGOs which they talk about environment education for rural places, I get very irritated because I think these people know people who have elephants in the backyards. They know that you can't step out in the night. If you're stepping out in the night, the basics they need to maintain. And it is a bit like how we cross a road, we look left, we look right before we do it, like a etiquette. They have to live those lives, and they have no choice, and they don't neither have the privilege of voices. We have voices to talk about this. People don't have those voices will never get heard. And although again, a lot of my friends will disagree with me, I think the elected representatives in India do a phenomenal job. We might disagree with them. We can call politicians corrupt, all that stuff. But one nice thing is that, 3 days ago, Bandipur, one tiger killed a person. It was the second incident in 10 days. The MLA was there. The forest minister he had to stop everything and represent that. And you could say that they're doing for votes, and maybe they're doing for votes. But the whole point is that they represent that people, and the people do get hurt by making noise, right? So the relationship is not perfect, and I think we are, all of us maybe are guilty of probably sometimes romanticizing it too much, more than it is. But I think these voices need to be heard, and I think it's the population problem lies with us. We should never point fingers. We live in comfortable villas and apartments where we don't get um, even display. I always keep asking, I mean, I just bought this apartment 2 years ago, my like 2 decades of saving. And if somebody comes, a biologist says that there is a rare species of gecko which is only found here, and we're going to demolish your apartment and you go off, I'm going to fight for it, no matter how much I love wildlife and things like that, right? And when we ask people to be displaced or whatever for environmental reason, I wouldn't say wildlife necessary. I think we are unfairly expecting things out of them, which we ourselves are not ready to let go.
There are other reasons for displacement too, and other reasons for destruction too, right? Like large scale, like mining and roads and linear infrastructure of different kinds and so on. Where is that with respect to the same destruction, and where do you place that in the whole?
I don't know. I don't know if I have an easy answer.
It's usually not easy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many of the viewers are from Bangalore. Our deputy chief minister has a proposal to build a tunnel from close to my house to my mother's house in South Bangalore, because normally it takes me 2 hours to reach her. Do I think it's great? It's great. It'd be great to get to my mother in 20 minutes. As a citizen of Bangalore, I would love that, living near her. What are the environmental costs? Frankly, I don't even know. I haven't even read up about it. I mean, full disclosure, and I can only imagine the amount of environmental impact we'll have digging a big tunnel for 4-lane highway across the city underground. I don't even know. I'm just not knowledgeable.
Don't worry, it won't happen in your lifetime, my lifetime. So
Fair enough.
it'll start. It'll start and it'll keep going.
So I find, I mean, I think I don't agree with my friends all the time, which is you can't say no to everything either. I think.
So you don't agree with your friends, as in you think we can't say no to everything all the time.
Yes. Yeah. Even Nicobar project, for example, I have mixed views about it. as a biologist, not a biologist, as a somebody who loves nature, I'm completely against it. I've visited that place. I know exactly what's there. But I also read about geopolitical issues. I know exactly what China is doing. In fact, um, I've always been a critic of China. I think being non-democratic and bully ways. But now I'm a big fan of China in ways. How they managed to clean up their air. In Beijing and all that. Um, but I shouldn't quote him. But a friend of ours said recently, not on stage, over dinner, India is a open society with a closed mind, and China is a closed society with an open mind. It's very interesting. I really don't know, and I feel that I think there's also a process of getting old. I just feel that I can't be black and white anymore in life with anything, like politics or values, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I just think that fine, I wouldn't be. If I truly believe that it's black and white, I'll stick to my gun. But most often, I myself am not black and white about it, and I find it really hard to take extreme stand on things anymore.
I hear you. Great. Prem, I just have one big picture question to Kalyan, and then we can either do a small rapid fire just to get him to say some things,
Yeah.
or we can close it out.
Trying to trip me, I see.
Just one big question for you. Actually, I can include that here. What is the one story that you've wanted to tell that you haven't yet told?
Somewhere in the future, I think I want to show the relationship of mental health and connection with nature.
Sorry,
Why
fist
did you
bump
laugh?
again.
I don't know how I'm going to structure it. I know that mentally I feel so much better being out in the wilderness, and I wonder. I mean, mental health was not a mainstream term 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and now I'm glad everybody recognizes and talks about it. And I wonder if we can talk about nature conservation, protecting our environment through the lens of human well-being, especially mental health.
Oh, that's a different angle. I'm approaching it from a different angle. So
Sure.
good.
I mean,
We'll
I'm
talk
not
about
sure
it.
yet what angle
We'll
I'm.
talk about it. No, that's cool. That's cool. Prem, any other questions from you before I kind of launch into this?
Yeah, I mean, I was wondering, Kalyan, for decades now, you've been immersed in nature and wildlife and in filmmaking, which basically helps you see things much closer and much more vividly than, say, the casual tourist. I was wondering if there was one moment that you can think of that haunts you or surprised you or even changed you in ways that you hadn't anticipated.
I think there are too many moments. I don't know if I can pick one. Um, my most fruitful ones really were my Peepley projects, I think, both spending time with Dungars and people in Hassan who were affected by elephants, who I did parachute in, and I got a nice literal physical reminder that I'm not invited there, and to open up. I think what I learned is to open up. Don't go with your judgments, and as a storyteller, you kind of always go to a place with a story in mind. I think
Hmm.
you don't always go with complete. I mean, you kind of at least have a direction of your story, and with more. I think that really taught me that I think you should just kind of let go of that and let stories evolve from the place. And that's really the hard part, of course. Everything that you see, talk to people, there might not be stories, and I think it's picking the things that can make good stories and which you can tell the larger audience.
Right. Are they all yours?
Okay, great. Kalyan, have you seen Coffee with Karan?
Uh, does it still come? I think I've seen few episodes. Oh,
So
yes.
you've seen the rapid fire, right? There isn't a hamper at the end of this, but there's just really quick takes on whatever comes to your mind first that makes sense to you. Feel free. Who's the most underrated filmmaker in your mind?
Ah, Saravanakumar.
Sarah.
Sarah.
Prem, you know who this is, right?
Yeah.
We've talked about him. Okay. What's the most overlooked issue today in the world today?
Polar bears sitting on ice, melting ice. I
What?
mean, usual, but
Overlooked.
overlooked. Sorry,
Over.
got overhyped. Okay.
Thank you. You gave
Okay,
me a
now we
shock.
have two answers.
Yeah.
Yes.
You gave me a shock there. I was like, whoa. Okay. Yeah.
I'm just
So,
sick of the polar bear. Every time there's an article on climate change. Anyway,
seriously.
I think climate change also is an underlooked issue, but I think people are not looking at how climate change is affecting us or people. I mean, nobody's linking Maharashtrian farmer suicides to climate change.
Hmm.
And there is large linkages to that. And I really think that those are things ought to be looked
Very good. What's the biggest con?
at. Wildlife filmmakers.
What has been your sweetest reward?
I think sweetest reward is when I've followed animals for long enough where those individuals treat me as an individual. And yeah,
Nice. The dream you hold dearest.
to see the world in a better place with I can't say things now. You won't, I can't say things. You'll get censored. So I won't say.
Okay, got it. All right. Your one regret, if any at all.
For not starting this um, journey into wilderness much earlier.
Man, you
Like-
were like some 16 or 17 when you started, no? Or whatever.
No, mid 20s. Mid
20?
20s.
How much earlier would you start? Anyway,
I wish I was started earlier.
your one shining moment.
Not your favorite Arati, but recording with David Attenborough. Yeah.
Sorry. That was instinctual. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I
God.
think you can have your views. So it's fine.
I know, but so publicly. Anyway, the one story you wished you had told that was told by someone else.
That's a hard one.
Dude, this is rapid fire.
I know. Oh, I mean, these are complex questions. Yeah, come on. I never think about these things. So I have to dig down deep into my. I probably don't have an answer. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, no worries. The last one. What's the biggest misconception about you that people may have?
I think you guys should say that. I think I'm probably not as vocal as I should be. So people think I'm the armchair, what you define as armchair environmentalist thing, where you just sit there and say that save tigers, save elephants. I think I'm not that. I think a lot of people think that I am that way.
Okay.
Thank you, Kalyan. It has been a fabulous episode in spite of the glitches. We will try to edit the glitches out. But thank you for coming on From the Marginlands and for being so candid. Thank you so much for coming on From the Marginlands, Kalyan. And I must say that everybody I speak to around me over here, not wildlifers, they do think that your aesthetic, whether it is photography or whether it is filmmaking, is one of the best, probably even in the world.
Thank you. That's very kind of you.
Thanks for taking the time, Kalyan. You are apparently doing a lot of travel. I think you're traveling tomorrow again, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. Thanks for taking the time, man.
No, but thanks talking to you, Prem. I think it's been so long, and it's been so long. I mean, I miss our, discussions during Peepley days and story arc, and yeah. We should do that
Hopefully,
again.
maybe one day, someday, we'll all make a feature film, a fictional feature film starring what, Amitabh Bachchan or whoever?
Shah Rukh Khan. I think both of us.
Shah Rukh Khan. Whatever. Maybe we will.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks for taking the time and
Ian.
being so candid and open.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't that open. I can, you know what I mean. But yeah.
Take care.
I was looking forward to this, to recording with Kalyan with a great deal of anticipation because, as we both know from working with him over the years, and particularly during that period of about 8 to 9 months when we did Peepley, and he reported on man elephant conflict from the Hassan region. We know what an excellent storyteller he can be. It's not just a camera, a lens, good, pretty pictures, or good videos. He actually builds stories. He knows how to he knows how to get deeper into a subject and all of that. I was looking forward to recording this, and I'm so happy we did. Uh, because for me, it's a reaffirmation of the fact that he is people. He's been a while back, and you know,
10 years.
yeah, and for some reason or the other, I mean, Kalyan has been busy with his work. You've been busy with yours. I've been busy with mine, and our contacts haven't been as frequent as they used to be. Uh, so, listening to Kalyan speak in this episode for me was heartening because it told me that during this interregnum of 10 years, he's grown so much as a filmmaker, as a storyteller. More a storyteller than a filmmaker, and that's always wonderful when you see that happening, right? I mean, it's such
Yeah.
a. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I think he's a rare breed in filmmaking, in that he is deeply embedded with the conservation side of it, but the community conservation side of it, which is really important because taking the community along is so vital to conservation. And he's one of those guys who's always, ever since I've known him since 2010, I think, he's had that bent in him, and it's nice to see that he still has that. He wasn't as candid as I would have liked him to be, and he admitted that to that as well. But I think still, even so, he is one of those rare filmmakers who is standing in a world which tries to prettify things, but still trying to tell the hard stories, and the icky ones, not shying away from the ickiness of conservation or the ickiness of the world today, which is very important. And I think if and when he writes his or films his feature film, it'll be his fiction. It'll be quite interesting.
Yeah, totally. And I agree with even in our conversation, he's willing to take stands that are. We both know how it is. If we say something that does not quite resonate with the choir, there's always this
Yeah,
dissonance, and then there are these carping comments that you have to deal with and all of that. And so it's not always easy speaking out, particularly against received wisdom, but he's very comfortable. For instance, when he talked about the use of AI, for instance, he's comfortable admitting that he uses AI for some purposes. He's equally very clear about where the ethical lines are drawn, and also you know what differentiates the true filmmaker from the AI assisted nonsense that we're getting increasing amounts of. So that too was interesting to me.
yeah. And he has always been somebody who can straddle, uh, I won't say both sides. That makes him sound
Yeah,
wishy-washy. That's not true. But he kind of appeases the side that he doesn't agree with the way he says something that he agrees with. So it's
yeah,
always, it makes me smile on the side, even when I see his comments on either Facebook or Instagram. Makes me smile because I know that he's a diplomat.
sure. But he's a diplomat with a mind of his own, and I suppose to negotiate this world that we are in, a certain degree of diplomacy, which
It's good.
it's actually, yeah, something that we could both learn from him, I think.
Yeah, definitely me.
No, both of us. Um, I get into my fair share of trouble, but it's been wonderful actually catching up with Kalyan and then
It
recording.
is. It is. Lately, we have been doing that a bit. And in fact, he called me one night, I remember, and schooled me in diplomacy. It was like, it would behoove you to do this a little bit, you know, softer.
Hmm.
It was about something that he and I disagreed on,
Yeah,
and I had been vocal about it. So
yeah, I
he
think I
schooled
know
me
what
on it.
you're talking about, but we won't go there just now.
Correct.
Adi, thanks so much for actually doing this while you have a case of fairly bad bronchitis. I've been scared to call you on the phone because
Yeah, it's been 12 days and counting,
yeah,
2 episodes and counting. I mean, I'm ready to be done with it. I'm usually not a whiner when it comes to sickness, but
yeah.
this one is,
And if I remember correctly, you have a trip coming up, so get well soon.
yeah,
And folks, that's it from us for this week. As usual, your comments much appreciated. You can post that below this particular video, or you can write to us at marginlands@gmail.com. You could help us out by sending a link of this episode to one person in your circle who otherwise would not have known of this podcast. Because we both believe that we address issues that should resonate beyond the choir, that should come to the attention of every man and every woman for that matter. Uh, so yeah, that would help. What will also help is if you've stumbled on us by accident or somebody sent you this link, please subscribe so you know as and when new episodes drop. Hit the bell icon, all the usual things. Check out the show notes for more from Kalyan, and thank you very much, and we will see you a fortnight from now.
just one more thing. If you are only listening to us either on Apple or on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, please do leave us. You can leave us up to a 5-star rating. Whatever you like, please comment. It really helps us get noticed and found by people who may not be subscribed to us already. Thank you so much for listening to From the Marginlands, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Take care.